Hello, welcome to the Arc at Headingley for this week's edition of Back Chat, that bastion of rugby league programmes, and we're joined by three bastions today as well. Danny Lockwood from League Weekly newspaper, Rod Studd, rugby league broadcaster, and Garry Schofield, legend. We've had some fantastic matches this last couple of weeks, both here and in Australia. Does that mean that the top eights are working?
I think Friday night's game was an absolute classic, Warrington and Wigan. We've had too few to comment about this year, but I thought that game in itself had more stories in it than the rest of the Super 8s so far. And I think it sets up the denouement of this stage of the season. I think it gives us a cracker coming up this weekend. Does it justify the whole system? I'm not so sure about that. I think there's some arguments to be had, but I do think that Castleford have made an argument for there being life beyond the top four.
Just like Holland Catalan did last year.
The irony is that the Warrington-Wigan game, which in my opinion was the best game of the season, I mean, absolutely gripping, that you were on the edge of your seat, weren't you, all the way through that second half of what would happen. The irony came really with the fact that the vultures were circling about the Super 8s. You could hardly move for columns that were saying this has got to go and it's an absolute, it's a hopeless system and it's a farce and it's no use, change it now immediately. And then that game came along, a couple of days later.
We talked about that game, but also as well, if you look at it for the last 18 minutes, it was all Warrington. Let's forget about this 28-14 up in front, but then all of a sudden, instead of Wigan being plan A, the Wigan players decided, well, I'll tell you what, we'll try this plan B. And Sean Way was in the stand sat there thinking, what's going on here? We don't have a plan B. But I'll tell you what, then Wigan players for the last 18 minutes, Dave, and I say, fellas, with that game, they just showed what a quality side Wigan want to be when they pass the ball, because they've got a cracking backline. OK, Matt Smith gets them around the park, but George Williams got the pace organisation, and that backline have got pace. But I'd say they were a pleasure, Wigan were a pleasure to watch for 18 minutes. But it was the best game. But overall, when you were talking about the qualifiers, I think it's the quality's not been there for mine.
Well, I think if you get games like that week in, week out, you don't care what the structure is, because you're actually being entertained and you're getting the product as the product should be. The problem we've had this season, it doesn't matter whether you have a 12s and 8s, 2 10s, whatever. If the product is poor, and it has been, then people the vultures will circle. People will say it. But I don't think that justifies it in itself, doesn't Friday's game, Dave? Yeah. But it certainly was a welcome piece of light relief.
To me, the problem with the eights, both the top eights, the qualifiers, is there are too many games that either don't really matter, teams can go into them and know that they might lose it, but it doesn't really matter, and teams that have nothing to play for.
Well, there's too many games, isn't there? There's too many games. So really, the purest system is you play everybody home and everybody away, so that's 22 matches. Yeah. You've got a structure at the moment, we've got 30 matches. Players are going round and round in circles, and it's the same teams playing each other time and time again. So you're going to have home and away, that's 2. You get the Magic game, they'll play for a 3rd time. Those same teams will probably play in the 8s, that's a 4th time. They may play in the playoffs, that's a 5th time.
Challenge Cup
and then
well.
the Cup and the Challenge Cup. So it could be the same teams could play to the 6 times.
Or 7 if they meet in the semi and the quarter and the final.
6. I mean, that can't be good.
Well,
if you see Saints v Wigan 6, do you want to see Saints Wigan 6 times?
No, don't.
Warrington witness 6 times.
But if we look at the fixtures,
Derby.
We'll look at the fixtures what's coming this weekend. We'll look what's happening Friday night, don't we? Warrington Hull, that should be fantastic. But then you look at other 3 games. Castle Widnes, Wakefield Saints, and Wigan Catalans. Yeah, and they're going to be hammerings, aren't they? Really?
You're going to get that. We've had that forever. So long as you have a competition that is dominated by 4 or 5 teams, which Premier League football had until last season, then you're going to get that. And by the time that you reach, sort of 3/4 of the way through the season, for at least half the clubs, there isn't a lot to play for, except professional pride, which is what Castleford have shown us you can still have, and which Wakefield, by the way, dug out in spades last Thursday
that was
night,
terrific from Wakefield,
and really should have had a victory over Hull there, but for.
So we've seen some absolute nerve-tingling games down under in the NRL in their playoffs. Should the RFL be looking at adopting a similar system whereby there's jeopardy from the very first weekend? Two teams go out.
We had their 8-team playoff system. It was awful. Yeah. It was horrendous, wasn't it?
We didn't have it like the Aussies have got it now.
We did. We've got the same system.
We've always had variations on their teams, haven't we? But the fact is that
they've got the same system as we used to have that we scrapped.
They don't seem to be getting all worked up about it, and they have no automatic trapdoor. There is no promotional relegation from their competition. It's the 8s or nothing. Yeah. And yet they remain a vibrant, progressive competition. Well, I think our problems are not necessarily.
Yeah, but there's a
about the
lot wrong with
structure.
their system. They've got a system where you play every team once and some teams twice.
Yeah.
You've got a system where teams are disadvantaged because they have to play after Origin with none of their players. You've got a system where some teams can't play at home in the playoffs. They're not allowed to.
And the cream always rises, Rob.
Well, yeah,
But you put that. We
don't.
don't have that. What I'm saying is we don't have that. But if we adopt that 8-team system, whereby there's the big thing this year about the team that finishes 8th has got no chance of making the top 4, no chance of making the grand final. But why should they? Why should they?
Have they ever?
However,
why are we hung up on it?
However, in this system, in the system that the Aussies have, the team that finishes 7th, 8th have a theoretical chance of making the grand final. But boy, they've got to be really good for the.
Well, that's what we had. We had it, and we had games like Huddersfield 410-0.
Yeah.
Didn't we? That was the 8-team system, and we had games where you didn't. We had the top 4. They played each other to start, and the bottom 4 played each other to start. That's what the Australians have got, and it was discredited. And you can't have 8 teams out of 12 qualifying for playoffs, can you?
Well, that's the problem. If you've got a 15-team competition, you can justify it. But not when you've got 12, of which 3 or 4 are substandard.
What do we do? What is the answer? We sit here week in, week out, or fortnight in, fortnight out, and complain about the system as it is. It's easy to do that.
I'm not complaining about it.
Well, I just think it's quite simple. 23 games, whoever finishes top, you're top, and then we go to 1 v8s, 2 v7, 3 v6, and 4 v5, and go back to the old system.
And that allows you to have, I agree with the 23.
Well, it should be 22, shouldn't it?
22 and a magic if you want.
But if you got
but
magic,
at least that would afford you. That would afford you the opportunity to move the Challenge Cup back to where it ought to be, and have a proper international break, which is what Wayne Bennett wants.
The next thing they're going to be complaining about, mark my words, this is what will happen. They'll go and play in the World Cup, and they'll get smashed out of sight, and it'll be they're playing too many games. They should have rested. They should only play 22 or 23 games. We need to reduce the fixture list. And then they'll start talking about reducing the fixture list.
But that's about the finance directors at the clubs.
Well,
that's coming from the clubs. That's not coming from the
Well,
RFL.
no, let's put it like this, right? If you play 11 home games and you get an average gate of 10,000 people, that's 110,000. If you play 14 home games and you get an average of 7 to 8,000, say 8,000, that's 112,000. So it's virtually the same. If you get more coming in for high-quality, important fixtures, you'll get the same people through the turnstile.
We're not arguing.
Right, at the moment, the Super 8 fixtures, they go round and round in circles. I can't say every single one, almost every single one of the Super 8 fixtures has a lower gate than the corresponding league fixture earlier in the season. So when Saints went to Wigan recently in the Super 8s, it was way down when they played at Wigan earlier in the season, and so on and so forth. So people aren't watching it.
Well, at least we have a,
give them less, better quality and more important matches, and they'll come and watch.
Well, I'd like to think that the quality was there in order to do that, Scoy, but the stories that we've seen this year have come from the qualifying eights, haven't they? So I'm just so happy that we've finally got some movement. I think it's happened a year earlier than I expected, and I think Lee have been the story of the year.
But they would have gone up anyway, wouldn't they? If you had what Garry's saying there, like a
but we haven't
league, and say 1 or 2 up and down, Lee would have gone up anyway. In fact, they'd have gone up last year and the year before, and they wouldn't have had to go through the rigmarole.
So we've now got this final game in the 8s, which is the Friday night game, which is Hull v Warrington, which is a decider. Had Warrington won last week, it would have been an entirely different landscape, wouldn't it? It would have been 2 A teams going against each other. But here we have first against second. Who do you find? Have Warrington blown it psychologically?
You can make a case for that, Dave, to be honest with you, but I just feel as though Hull now, what they've got to do is quite simple. It's 3 weeks since they've won at Wembley, so that honeymoon period's finished. Against Wakefield, their performance, there was no purpose in it. There was no organisation. Mark Sneed was very, very orderly. He didn't have the right field position, but he can't create anything with ball in hand. But his kicking game has been very important. But the whole performance is quite simple. They've got to get back to what they've done all season. The forwards have got to be ripping in. And then play off the back of Sneed with good field position with his kicking game there and force mistake from the opposition. If they get back to that, then they will turn Warrington over on Friday night. I just feel as though they've got a couple of injuries. Warrington, Sandow's missing, Ben Kelly looks like he could be missing, Jack Hughes as well, the second row. So they're big playmakers, they have been for Warrington all season. So if Hull get back to what they've been doing all season, ripping into Warrington, forcing mistakes in good field position, then Hull will win the Shield on Friday night.
It's a big if though, Scoy, and you of all people would know it. I mean, Warrington went through this, didn't they, when they would have been so successful in the Challenge Cup and they couldn't buy a victory after that, and it just looks like the same.
Leeds did it in 2004.
Wigan did it when they won the double.
It just looks like that same syndrome has struck Hull.
But to be honest with you, though,
can you turn the energy back on?
To be honest with you, though, since Wembley, Warrington have played well. They went to Catalans and win. They beat Widnes, and then they
played well against Wigan
for 62 minutes. They were in control against Wigan, so they played all right.
But they've had something to prove since losing at Wembley.
Absolutely.
Hull just seem to have gone to sleep on.
But what does it do to their mindset? The fact that they had a Challenge Cup final, won and lost.
Correct.
And they had the league leaders shield, won and then lost. They might still win it, but what does it do to their minds?
Well, they just at times they just feel as though, and I noticed a little bit as well with Warrington. I've noticed it a few times this season. How long does it take them when they score a try? How long does it take them to celebrate? They celebrate scene for ages instead of getting back to what they should be getting. Concentration, getting ready for the old cliche for the next set of 6, but they just seem to take their mind off the job in hand, go away from what got them there. Tony Smith mentioned it on Friday. They went away from what got them in that position, trying to come up with champion players, and that's where they fell down. That's where they fell down in the Challenge Cup, and that's where they fell down against Wigan on Friday night.
Where I think they fell down against Wigan on Friday night, if you look at that, right, the game's finished, isn't it? The game's done. When Flower gets sent off, it's done. The game's
You can only win the game once, and Warrington had it won.
And a man sent off.
And a man sent off. They didn't kick a penalty there, which from the Flower incident, which I think 9/10 of rugby teams would have, just to calm it down, kick 2 points, take time out of the game. But the players they got on the pitch, how they did. You bring Kurt Gidley in, you think. That is a position where Kurt Gidley should just be managing this game. Surely,
close the game down.
I mean, look, Wigan was sensational. It was vibrant. It was the panache, the flair. It was magnificent. But on the other side of the fence, Warrington have got to be saying, well, why didn't we shut the game down?
12 men were creating overlaps against
it was ridiculous,
13, which you just never see. But let's face it, Warrington will have worked all week on that famous Wigan
structure, and they thought, what's this? Yeah, exactly.
It's coming down the middle, and that's as far as we have to look, boys. And when they got thrown that so late in the game, tired legs, perhaps a little bit, well, they've got a consolation try. We can handle that. Oh, hey, they've got another. We better start too late.
Just on Wigan though. Right, we've all been saying, look, you've got such talented players. Give them the ball. Go out and play. And why don't the players just think, oh, stuff this, we'll go and do it? And they did in that desperate scenario.
That's what they did.
Don't you think that Sean Wayne should say, hang on a minute. Now, I don't know whether they'd win more games or lose more games playing like that.
I'll tell you,
they might win more.
They would win far more games.
But whatever they did, and whatever the results they achieved, they'd have the admiration of everybody because and their own supporters have been saying this is absolute rubbish. We don't want to watch it.
Do you know what,
imagine if they could turn out and play like that every week.
Do you know what? Well, the players want to play that way.
Well, of course,
the players want to play that way, but because unfortunately it's coming from the top, and I say with Sean there, and Sean's not going to change his philosophy. But when you saw him in that stand on Friday night, you were like that.
Right.
What are they doing?
But do you think
what are they doing? We don't have a plan B.
Right,
Do you
think now they've got at least 2 and probably maybe 3 games left? Do you think they'll go out now and think, do you know what?
No,
we can go out and do that.
Or
will they revert back to type? They'll go back to type.
Well, they won't have to against Catalans.
Well, they won't against Catalans.
They're missing a lot of. They're missing a lot of the grunt down the middle. I mean, McIlroy out for this season, of course. We've got Club out now. They've got Lachlan. It looks as though Flower's going to be missing for probably the rest of the season if he gets a 3-match ban, even a 2-match ban.
Yeah, but there's still enough quality in that side. Tompkins, okay, he's lost a bit of his pace, but still he showed that.
Some of the passes that try.
He showed some of that leadership, what he's got from there, but certainly that back line for Wigan.
They've got plenty of flair. They've got Gelling and.
Well, I thought Gelling.
I love Gelling. I love Gelling.
They have got plenty of organisation, good quality in that back line, and what they've got pace. They could cause any team in Super League a problem.
Are they going to win it now? Grand final? Are they the favourites now because of what they did to
they'll beat
momentum. Have they got momentum?
No, because let me tell you why they haven't got momentum. Because the time I remember them winning it a few years ago, and they'd lost loads of games. They'd lost the last 2 games going into the playoffs. They'd lost all the games in and around.
But they've beaten Saints, Hull, Warrington last 3 games.
No momentum. No, I don't.
Top 3 teams. They've beaten them all.
Any outcome possible. Any outcome possible. But what I would say is, if they went on to play with all that panache and went on to win it, we'd all stand there and go, well, that's fantastic. And they do the whole game a great service because the sooner a team playing like that or playing like Castleford, who go out and Warrington and regally entertain, start winning trophies, is when the game will be in a better place. Because what happens is teams mimic the winning teams, don't they? They think, we'll copy that pattern. So Wigan's structure has been successful with Michael Maguire and then Sean Wayne, and everyone's mimicked it. Mimic, structure. And that's not doing anybody any good, really.
Well, Hull and Warrington have got away from that to an extent this season. And I think, and I would...
But wouldn't it be marvellous if teams playing in that manner,
wouldn't it be great if, like the Aussies, we got a bit of both? Because
fair enough.
Because you can't just throw the ball about in minute 1. Because you
can.
Well, you can, but you're not going to win many games like that.
What about St Helens v Castleford? Hold on, let me just say this. Saints kicked off to Cass, and the first thing they did was start throwing it around in their own 20-metre area and offloading. It was marvellous.
Do it for 80 minutes.
All right, well, you might get beat.
Well, all I would say is this. I do think Scully hit on the key point if you're asking who's going to win the lot this year. Injuries, because if Warrington are hurting as badly as they look to be now, Wigan we know are, Hull seem to be, if they can find that key to switch the engine back on, they would still be, for me, in pole position.
That is a massive. I mean, it goes without saying that's a massive game, Hull against Warrington, but it's not just about the League Leaders' Shield, is it? It's about top two. Whoever wins that.
Well, in fact, you're absolutely right. It's more.
Wigan
It's a home semi.
The League Leaders' Shield is a total and utter irrelevance. It's the home semi-final that's relevant.
They're getting they get a medal this year.
Say, well, if Hull beat Warrington, then they say Wigan
what do we have to do? What do we have to do? No, what do we have to do to make the League Leaders' Shield relevant? What do we have to do to make it a piece of silverware that everyone wants to win?
Well, it's very simple. You make it so the champions are the team that finishes top.
Yeah, and then you just bin the playoffs.
And also, as well, you know what's laughable this year as well? They brought some medals into it. What's all that about? Well, at the end of the day, that medal's going to be absolutely nothing, because you know what ring's important is getting that ring at Old Trafford October.
I'll tell you what,
when they get this medal, it'll be like the medal I got.
What's the point?
Didn't worth nothing because
Did you get a medal? Did you actually get a medal?
Runners-up ones, which don't mean nothing. So it's straight in the dustbin. So this year they've come up with this ridiculous idea to try and give it some importance. We'll give them a medal. It'll go straight in the dustbin.
It'll be interesting to see what the attendance is at the game, because
at Hull
versus Warrington. Because if it had been a first past the post league, that ground had been sold out. Garry was writing in his League Express column this week about Widnes versus Wigan in 1989, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I love that bit.
Was that the fire? The
I
two
live
fire
nostalgia.
trials?
A hat trick, Dave. A hat trick.
John Helen
a hat
commentary.
trick.
Yeah.
And you know that Norton Park, as old people call it, they were hanging off the floodlights.
Yeah.
There's 17,000.
Yeah, it was Norton Park. Was it 17,000?
You can't get in. They're hanging off the floodlights. Yeah, there's 17,000. You know, Fire scores and they all engulf him on the face. And you know, that was a winner takes all decided.
Well, he said that back in 1989. If Hull had got a crowd of 12,000, he said, yeah, it's a decent crowd. They'll probably get a crowd of 15,000, 16,000.
Yeah, but it should be sold out, shouldn't it? This game should be sold out.
Well, Warrington, Simon Ranney's putting all three buses. I reckon Warrington are taking 3,000 fans,
Right,
so
okay,
there's plenty of Warrington fans going over, by all accounts, on Friday night, so should be a great atmosphere.
Should be a classic.
We're looking forward to as well to the second half of Back Chat coming up in just a few moments' time. Welcome back to the second part of Back Chat. Lively stuff so far, and we've only talked about the top four. My goodness, I think it's the first time we've talked about the top four for the past 6 episodes, because all the focus has been on the middle eights. Just before we get on to the middle eights, St Helens, they're the kind of the fourth of the four. Nobody's really talking about. Is that an advantage? Can you see them making an impression, Rod?
Well, they're going to be away from home,
yeah,
which is obviously going to be a disadvantage, and they're going to be away from home at Hull or Warrington. And I don't think that Kieran Cunningham would be sitting there thinking this is an impossible task. Their record at Warrington, as we know, is very good.
Yeah.
And Hull have been a little bit flaky recently, haven't they? So, I mean, I don't think... One of you talk about momentum. I mean, St Helens' recent run has been extremely good, hasn't it? Yeah. One blip, really, but generally the way they've been going has been very good. I don't think you could rule any of the four teams out. The favourites are going to be the teams that play at home, clearly. I mean, that's an advantage, but... I wouldn't put it past St Helens, would you? I mean,
on any other weekend, you would have said it's anybody's game.
Yeah.
And I think it will be.
Okay, well, we'll know all about that after this weekend. Who's playing who and in what order. Right, middle eights. They've just occupied our fascination because they've been really interesting. Lee, congratulations to them, etc., etc. But here we go, Jeopardy. This is where it goes. Hull KR, Huddersfield, Salford. One of them's going down.
Well, for mine, it's Salford who are going down, and I say the way that London beat them last week, I think London will beat Featherstone this week, and big performance at Batley for this week. We all know that John Keir, it's his last game in charge, going to be a great atmosphere from there, plenty of people there. They'll want to put in a performance from there. Salford, the way they are going, they're in an absolute mess. And again, Ian Watson, he has backed his players all year, and also as well now, he's asking them to perform for him. It's quite simple, that dressing room has gone. They don't want to be there. Salford's in a mess, and I tell you what, Batley will beat Salford this weekend, and that'll be it. End of Salford.
The irony is, of course, if we were talking just about match performances this season, Salford would have been in the Super 8s.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Danny,
they're not. I'm not arguing that. I think it's just been quite a calamitous collapse in form, and something has dropped out of the bottom at Salford. I don't see a way back for them. I mean, okay, I looked to be struggling a few weeks ago, but I think right now Salford have got to be red-hot favourites.
It changes every week.
What we've got here is one match form.
Yeah.
Right? We had this conversation the week before. The same people have been
Yeah.
saying different things about the same teams.
Yeah.
So last week they beat Featherstone 70, and Danny and Garry would be saying they've really sorted themselves out.
And
now
they've got
a home game coming up against London, and I fancy them to beat them, and I think Salford will be safe. Because Garry, last time I was here, he said Huddersfield.
Hey, Rod,
Hold on,
I'll agree with you there. The way they performed against, and I said they've got 3 championship sides. Salford then have been a £1 million game.
You
but
said that
there's something happened.
You
at that
said
club
that
in the dressing room.
Huddersfield. You said that when I was last here.
I agree.
When was it? About 4.
Yeah, Batley. I agree.
Probably about a full 4 weeks ago. He said Huddersfield were finished, right?
Well, on the form, they won't
what
go
I'm saying is,
in
and
any
if
direction.
we'd had the same conversation last week when Huddersfield conceded 7 tries or whatever it was in the first half at Lee, they'd be saying Huddersfield are finished, useless. That's it. That's the end. This week they've beaten Leeds, so now we've got. What do you think about Huddersfield now?
No, Huddersfield, they were pretty impressive for 40 minutes. For 40 minutes, they were pretty impressive. And what I'll say about Huddersfield as well, it's quite simple as that. If they can maintain that form going to Wilkie-R on Saturday, if they can play for 65, 70 minutes...
You're taking the fun out of it. You're taking the fun out of it.
If Rick Stone can pick the right players, and by the way, bringing Briley back this weekend was a right move, and I reckon he's been told by Ken Davey, you're picking Briley because he can score us tries.
What do you think?
You reckon Ken Davies picking a team?
What did you think of Hull KR?
You reckon Ken Davies picking a team?
I'm not saying he's picking the whole team, but one thing for sure here, Ryan Briley, Rick Stone, by all accounts, has said he's a comfy player, but he's not my style of player. I won't be picking him. I'll tell you what, there has been some interference from the top while Briley was playing at the weekend. And he was outstanding. And he was outstanding, I'll tell you what.
Is this one of your made-up stories again, or is it?
Oh, no, I don't make stories up.
I
don't make stories up. Why? Well, OK, then. A kid who's the best support player in Super League, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
He can score tries.
Yeah.
If you don't score enough points, you don't win the game, do you? This kid can score tries from any solid distance, and he's an asset. They paid a big fee for him, give him a 4-year deal, and then all of a sudden you get an Australian coach coming overseas saying here, a British young talent is no good, absolute rubbish. He is an asset for us.
I'll tell you what I think. I don't know who'll win because I'm quite happy to say I don't know.
That's no use.
Rod, this is not a programme when we sit on the fence.
I don't know. I don't know who'll win, but I think it's more than likely that Salford will beat Batley. But what I think about Hull KR versus Huddersfield is that this is a game where there's absolutely zero they're in a no-lose situation because if they lose, they get another chance. So if I was the coach of Huddersfield or Hull KR, you win and you stay up.
Oh, you want to avoid that.
No,
you want to avoid that.
There's no. I would go out and say we're going to go out and we're going to throw it around because we've got the second chance.
So you do
It's
not
like the
want to.
playoffs,
You
you know.
do not.
I disagree with that.
You do not want to put yourself
pressure.
in that position.
There's no pressure when you can't lose.
Absolute ultimate pressure.
Hold on a minute, you can't lose.
Because
Yes,
you
you
want to
can.
be safe.
Right.
Because
Okay.
if you're a
Right.
full-time professional,
Right.
Rob,
Okay.
and when you have the
Right.
chairman's special here, you had Michael
Right, I've heard
Carter
that.
talking about and they won,
Yeah.
just how lousy and
Right,
experienced
hold on a
that
minute.
is.
Right.
Salford have shown already
No.
enough, this season they've shown enough form, and there's nothing
tell
to
you-
say
let
that
me
you've just said to us, any game,
Any
any
outcome is possible.
So what I
There's
don't
no
know.
pressure when you can't lose.
You can lose though.
You've
You
got
go
to
into that
lose
£1
again.
million.
You're talking out of your hat, man.
game.
No,
if you go in that £1 million game,
okay,
it's a
you just said
lottery.
there's massive pressure on it. When the Super League playoffs, when you get the second chance if you lost, was there massive pressure on those games?
You're not playing for your career. You're
Hold
not
on a minute,
playing
I'm
for the
asking you,
fact
was there
that
massive pressure on the games when there was a second chance? If you lost, you got a second chance in the playoffs.
that's different.
Why is
Completely
it?
different.
Because it's
Completely
exactly the
completely
same.
different. You're
Because
not-
this is oblivion.
You're not playing
This is not just the
for
end of the
oblivion.
season.
You've got
This is
another
oblivion.
chance.
This is oblivion
Right.
you're looking at. If you lose a £1 million game,
Right.
it's oblivion. I know if Gareth Walker was here, he'd
They're
argue
not
against
in
that,
the £1 million
but-
game.
No, but they would be if they lost. So therefore, there's a lot of pressure to avoid that
There's
£1 million
no pressure.
game.
This is a game where both teams have got a safety net.
Rod's playing for Huddersfield or Hull KR.
They're playing with
Both
both teams in this game are playing with the aid of a safety net. That is the best situation.
That's a consolation for them.
You've got that as a kind of...
It's a consolation.
And
That's
get
what
this,
I
the safety net's a home game against a team that's worse than you.
Well, no, they're not, because technically the team that they're playing against, Salford, are going to be better than them because they finished higher than them in the league had it not been for the
not on
points
the-
reduction.
not
In
on-
terms of
not
personnel,
on the evidence
in terms of what they've achieved this season, Salford are the best team in that middle eight.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll let you back Salford away
I'm not
from
saying I'm
home.
backing Salford. I'm just saying that if you're
Making a
Colchester
point.
Rovers or Huddersfield, you are desperate to avoid that because, as we saw last year, Wakefield were one more breakaway try away from being relegated.
Yep.
If you lose, you've got a home game where you're going to start with probably a 65 to 70% chance of winning.
So would you rather play in that?
No, I wouldn't rather play in it, but what I'm saying is I wouldn't feel any pressure whatsoever. I'd go out and play. I'd go out and start throwing it around. If you start crabbing around, worrying about playing in a game that you're not even in, you're going to be in trouble.
You played in any relegation games, Rod?
There isn't a relegation game.
It is.
it is.
It's a semi-final.
It's an unemployment game.
It's a semi-final.
No, that's the next game.
I know.
They're not in that.
You don't want to be in there.
No, you want to avoid that.
I'll tell you what, I'd love to play with a safety net every match.
But who would you put your money on? OKR, Huddersfield? I mean, if Huddersfield are finding form again,
Oh yeah, if
OKR have found a bit of form again.
If Huddersfield can play for 65 minutes like they did against Leeds at the weekend, then Huddersfield will beat Hull considerably.
If Danny Brough has his game,
Danny Brough was outstanding again. Briley was outstanding. The forwards got involved a little bit as well. And for Hull considerably, it's all about campaigns. If he can stay on the field as well, they get him around the park. Good organisation from there. But if Huddersfield perform for around about 65, 70 minutes against OKR on Saturday, then Huddersfield will safe.
Yeah, should be a good crowd. Should be a fantastic
That'd be
atmosphere.
great atmosphere,
Even though it's a nothing game, as Rod says, you know, there's nothing on it. Nothing on it. But there'll be a fantastic.
I think we've got a lot of really, really important good games coming up.
Yeah. And Salford, you say likely to beat Batley. Are you also, Rod, considering realistically the chance that they won't be in that £1 million game?
What, in terms of being relegated before it even gets played?
Yeah.
Well, any outcome is possible in any game, no matter how
I know it is.
may seem.
But
I
in
would
your
say-
opinion, on a programme of opinions,
They've no safety net.
I would say that the overwhelming likelihood is that Salford will beat Batley.
right?
And that London Broncos will not beat Featherstone Rovers by 59 points more than Salford beat Batley, because that they would need to overtake the
But
points.
if Salford lose, it's just a straight London win, and they're in that £1 million.
That's
game.
correct. Yeah, I don't look. It would be surprising if Salford,
It'd be a great achievement for London, by the way.
lower mid-table Super League team, were to lose to Batley, a part-time team, who really haven't threatened to beat any of the Super League sides. In fact,
Although they were the only team to beat Lee in the regular.
They were, but it was a long,
John
long
Keir's
time ago.
last game, and there's a hill there at Batley.
That's a huge thing, Dave. Don't worry about that. You know, obviously the John Keir influence of players. What he'll say, thanks, John. We're going to put it in for you for the next 80 minutes. And that hill at Batley. If Batley are playing down there in the second half, I can reassure you, they'll beat Salford on Sunday.
If Salford go into that game with the same mindset they went in against London, they are very vulnerable.
They're in danger.
They are huge danger. The place is a mess. It's an absolute mess.
We're told that Marwan has told the players what he's going to do. It's not come out yet, but we seem to be reading between the lines. Seem to think that he's told them he'll stay if they stay up. Does he need to come? Does he need to go public with that? Does he need to go public with that?
That's a real safety net for you, isn't it?
But also as well, can you believe him?
Well,
Can you believe what he says?
I think looking beyond the actual on-field action that we've got coming up, I think the one thing about this structure is it's throwing up some real questions about the viability of clubs.
Yeah.
I think Salford are in danger. I think Bradford and Sheffield, who were in one of the strangest games at the weekend in the Championship Shield, I do think that clubs are putting themselves under a lot of pressure, and I think Salford are right at the top of that list.
But I don't understand. How are they managing to do that? Rugby league clubs have never had more money.
Lousy management,
Right.
Rob.
Well, they never spent as much money. That's the problem.
That may be true.
Lousy management.
They've never charged punters more to go in, ever. So how they've got revenue that they've never had before. So how are they managing to get themselves in a mess?
Lousy management.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, some clubs manage themselves very well.
But bear in mind,
Batley
but bear in mind, we're told constantly that the salary cap is the panacea to all ills, and it would stop teams going bust.
And now that we've lifted it, they're going bust.
They haven't been lifted, have they? Not in the Super League.
Well, they have in the Championship, haven't they? They've raised it in the Championship. Just a quick word before we move on. A quick word for the division below as well. Fantastic Rochdale. Well done to Rochdale for going to Toulouse. The first team to beat them in that kind of a scenario this season. First time Toulouse have lost in that kind of a scenario against fellow League One opposition. Yeah. But Toulouse now go into the playoffs. The chances are they're coming up anyways.
There doesn't look like being anyone else capable of repeating that dose. Obviously, it was a terrific result for Rochdale, because I don't think anyone saw it coming. I think we will still be very confident of seeing Toulouse.
They're not a bad side. Barrow, though, under Paul Cleary, they're not a bad side.
Yeah.
They're not a bad side at all, Barrow.
And as Rod would say, any outcome is possible.
When you look at the statistics, here's a question for you. When you look at the statistics, which club in League One has made more mistakes, handling mistakes, than any other?
Probably Toulouse.
Toulouse.
Yeah, because they play Wigan.
That's the way they play.
They play 80-minute Wigan football.
Yeah.
As it's now known.
Yeah, but they win most of the games playing that style of Rugby League, so encourage it more. Encourage it, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there.
No fear Rugby League.
Absolutely.
Well, the question is,
more
if they do come into the Championship, they're going to get punished more, though.
More of it. They're
going to get punished more if they do that in the Championship.
They're also going to be able to recruit.
Players
They're going to be able to recruit a better quality of player, and I think that they will be an immediate threat next year as well.
Yeah. Good for Rochdale, though.
Oh, great for Rochdale, absolutely. And I tell you what, I would imagine Ian Watson might go to Rochdale, which is just up the road from Salford, and say, hey, listen, how do you get some inspiration into your players? Because my players in my dressing rooms, quite simply, don't want to play.
Yeah.
Well done, Rochdale.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. And Toulouse going to the playoffs, and we might see them again. So it's all well and good. Where's your money on this weekend then, in terms of that middle eights? Just going back to those middle eights, occupying our thoughts. Where's your money on what's going to happen this weekend? I
do fancy Salford to rally and beat Batley, and I fancy Huddersfield to go and turn Hull KR over.
Right.
Huddersfield to beat Ulster Rovers, Batley to do a good job on Salford, and London to beat Featherstone.
When you say good job, I mean, at the start of the playoffs, a good job on Salford would be maybe losing by 12, 16. You're expecting better than that?
Oh, I am. Yeah. Obviously, I'm expecting Batley to rip in.
Well, they've been beaten 30.
Big enjoyment. Tell you, Rod.
They've been beaten 30 every game they play.
Listen,
I saw them play Huddersfield.
The simple fact is here,
Pleasant.
that Salford side, they're in an absolute mess. It's as simple as that. That dressing room has gone. They don't want to play for Salford. They don't want to play for the coach. Even Ian Watson this week has said,
how's that
the
happening
players...
in a week, though? I mean, the week before,
Because
focused.
somebody's interfering, and do they believe what the owner is saying to them? You know, the agents of them Salford players that have been to all different clubs saying, listen, I'll get you out there, somebody else wants you. Why the hell they want them players, I don't really know the way they play, to be honest with you. But Batley will do a job on Salford this weekend. You mark my words.
I'm marking them.
You mark my words.
You can't underestimate the Keir effect.
You can't underestimate
his last game in charge.
And you can't underestimate that ground. The dressing rooms of Salford players that are going in there, it's not what they're used to the size of it. It's an influence. The way these players are pampered nowadays, you know, there won't be the big room for them there, getting rubbed down and all this sort of thing. I'll tell you, it's an influence, Rod. Mark my words, Batley will beat Salford this week.
I can't mark them any more
It's
clearly.
a pity Salford weren't still at the Willows, really, wouldn't it? Because if they went to Batley, it'd be like a step up, wouldn't it, in terms of conditions and everything. If London get in the middle, if London get in that £1 million game and therefore have a chance of promotion, is that good for the game, given the situation they're in at the moment at Ealing?
I would say, well, they've already been absolutely shellacked at Huddersfield and at home by Hull Kingston Rovers, haven't they? So, and the outcome would be very unlikely that they would be able to beat either of those teams. But if they did, obviously they'd get promoted. But I mean, I cannot see for the life of me how you could stage top flight professional sport, Super League, Rugby League at Ealing.
Well, I think they've got plans in place looking at Brentford and one or two. If that happens, if the unlikely happens,
and it is unlikely. I think that's what we've got. That's where we've got to start from.
And you would say, just throw London into the Super League now. Are they actually ready as a club to go into the Super League now? I don't probably think they're not.
Not in the same fashion that Lee are.
No.
But does it give us a bit of hope for the future of London? The fact that they might be in a position to get promoted.
The fact that we're talking about it. The fact that we're talking about it at this late stage of the season, I think, validates, at least in part, the 12s and 8s system. You know, and the fact that we can get as excited about this competition as we are at the top end, I think is good for the game.
And you talk about crowds. Could you imagine a £1 million game, Huddersfield against London Broncos? Wow, there could be 500 there. that would be. I mean, that is a danger, because that's going to be shown on national television.
Cynical.
And this is a £1 million game.
I say we should Photoshop the crowd in.
Do you remember they played in a Challenge Cup quarter-final? It was the same day as Sergio Aguero scored the goal for Manchester City, which happened just before kick-off. And there was this enormous excitement with people listening on radios when Aguero scored. And then you sort of looked out at the crowd at Huddersfield versus London Broncos in the Challenge Cup, and there was literally nobody there. There was like about 2,000 there. You know, so I mean, goodness knows how many would be there. But you know,
let's see.
Huddersfield Salford is probably a more likely outcome.
So that's annoyed all the Huddersfield fans.
No, Huddersfield Salford would be a decent game.
Don't write in. Rod Stud's on Twitter. Have a go with him instead.
You were the one who said 500.
Palming it off to you. Right, let's take a break. We're back for part 3 in just a few moments' time. So welcome back to what you'll be relieved to find out is the final part of Back Chat for this week. We're going to talk a little bit about the NRL and also a chance to answer some of your questions. Can we just start, by the way, by apologising to Guild Wards, who posed a question a couple of weeks ago on Twitter. It was only afterwards I realised it wasn't Guild Wards, but Jill Edwards. So Jill, apologies to you. Right, NRL in just a moment, but questions first of all. Garry, this one for you. Saints Gus, Standard of Rugby 2016, dull. But he says players are taking too long in the tackle. That's the reason. The wrestle.
Well, everybody questions the wrestle, don't you? It is too long. I say the way they tackle nowadays, it's upper body, 2 or 3 men up there, and then the fourth man comes in, chops it down the legs. They're looking, I think, nowadays, 7, 8 second tackle. So what needs to happen, quite clearly, is the referee needs to shout held a little bit earlier, rather than when the fourth man comes in to chop them down. He needs to call held earlier, and then that'll speed up the game.
I thought actually that Robert Hicks, I think it was on Friday night in the whole Warrington, in the Wigan-Warrington game, absolutely got all over it. And he pinged him, and he gave Stefan Ratchford 10 minutes, which I think we disagree about. I thought it was merited. I thought the guy had made a break. It was consistent, and I think that's what we want, is consistency. There were a lot of penalties early on, and he kept with it, and I haven't a problem with that.
I think they're absolutely right. Get the call of holding quicker, but as a caveat to that, to make sure speeding up the game isn't necessarily good in itself, but the wrestling is just garbage. So get in quicker with the call of held, but tidy up the play the ball, which will then slow it down.
Actually play the ball.
Actually put your foot on the ball and roll it backwards.
They're managing.
Right, and if you're not capable as a rugby league player of putting your foot on the ball and playing it backwards, you're in the wrong sport, pal. So that coupled with your get rid of the wrestle, play the ball properly, the game will have its natural pace then, which is
I think it's been the biggest problem in the game this year.
Tidy it up, just tidy both those things up and actually apply the laws of the game as they were designed to be applied, surely.
OK, thanks for that, Saints Gus. Right, Andrew Lum 2 says, Unstead have got rid of the Hawks, Wakefield got rid of the Wildcats. Is it time to get rid of nicknames?
I think a matter of individual choice, isn't it? It was a marketing ploy on the back of the Bradford Bulls, and it followed
on the back of the Keighley Cougars.
But
Cougar Tribe.
But it's probably had its day, and certainly Wakefield think so, and Hunslet, and I'm more comfortable with the traditional names. I never really bought into Ronnie the Rhino.
Right, look,
no offence, Ronnie.
What I think is, if they want to live, rugby league clubs want to live in the 1960s, can they charge us 2 and 6 to go in?
Yeah, the nicknames. I think nicknames are important.
I agree with you.
I think it just goes by the club. St Helens seem to manage quite all right without it. Hull FC.
Yeah, but they've always been the Saints, Dave, haven't they? They've always been the Saints.
Right, the highly successful Super Rugby franchises in the Southern Hemisphere, the growing Super Rugby competition,
the NFL
and the NFL,
the baseball,
basically don't the Super Rugby don't even use it's not the Christchurch Crusaders, it's the Crusaders, it's not the Auckland Blues, it's the Blues. They don't even.
Well, the biggest sport in the world, arguably, is Premier League, and they've managed well without it.
But,
I think it's down to
because of the way they're
choice.
marketed now. I think that's you've just given us a clue to the answer there. The thing now is we are no longer a society that supports your local town, supports your local team. So Wigan fans, Wigan people don't necessarily grow up and support Wigan in terms of football. They'll support Liverpool or Manchester United, Chelsea. They'll support a franchise that is sexy. Rugby League's only chance of getting sexy, because these are grim northern towns, as we reply.
I think
the only way they get is by getting some kind of.
It's down to the product. It is down to how good the game is.
On the Premier League, not having names. If I say to anybody, any in the world, United won, who do they think I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Because
I thought you were going to say that was for you today, would you?
For me, if I was
sexy Scully, sexy Lockie.
If I was St
What a
Helens,
marketing ploy that is! What a marketing ploy that is! And we'll just stick with Dave Woods.
Rod the Stud.
Well, look at the darts. Darts thrives on nicknames. The Power plays MVG, plays the Flying Scotsman, plays Jackpot,
and then you look
plays
at
the Machine.
And then you look at them; those are real athletes.
But for me, if I was just on that, if I was St Helens, I'm with you. I'd get rid of St Helens and just call ourselves the Saints, and just have that the stick man with the halo. It's brilliant.
So
logo.
in British rugby, if you say who are the Saints, that's Northampton.
No, it'd be
Not if you marketed it well. Got it sexy.
Well, that'd be a first, wouldn't it?
Right, we got nicknames for all these three, by the way, but not for daytime television. Right, this is from Crusader Stevie, whose general gist is, should the game be trying to expand nationally rather than internationally? We talk about, we need to get a strong international game. Do we need a stronger national game? Newcastle, Gloucester, Hemel, Crusaders themselves, the South Wales team, should we be doing more to lift their profile, to get them into the Super League? And Garry can't wait to answer this one. But Danny, go on, go first.
I think there's been some terrific work done at that level over the last 20 years, and we just had the final of the Harry Jepson Trophy last weekend. There's a real community passion for the game in South Wales, in towns like the Medway Dragons down in Kent. London is, we're often told, is the fourth biggest rugby league playing region at school and amateur level. So I actually think that growth is there. Is it coming through on a semi-professional and professional level? No. Yeah. But you get guys like, Louis McCarthy-Scarsbrook coming through and Dan Sargentson, and you've got to say that, well, we are actually feeding into the world outside the 62 corridor. So I think international is still where we need to grow the game most.
And yet, to feed Garry Schofield's parochial taste buds, Cumbria next year will, in all likelihood, not have a team higher than League One, the third tier of rugby league.
Yeah, it's a disaster, isn't it? Absolute disaster for the Cumbrian side, and also true for the Cumbrian public. But the problem is for Cumbria, it's quite simple. They're not getting any quality up there. They're not getting the big team up there now. So, but there's more people watching the amateur game, Dave, up in Cumbria than what they're watching the pro game. So it is a massive problem. Huge.
Before Barrow fans write in and say we've still got a chance of promotion, you're Lancashire, and you always will be. Should we be spreading it more nationally? Should we do more to do it?
I'm not sure how much more they can do.
What about games on the road? Games on the road. We had those years ago. They were good.
Well, say years ago, they had one last year, didn't they? Didn't Wigan play in London last year?
Yeah.
A magic weekend, of course.
Well, we were supposed to play one this year in London.
Yeah,
that's not
that idea seems to have,
comes down to money, David.
Short-lived.
Marketing and money. Teams want the profile and they want the hullabaloo, but they're not willing to put their hands in the pocket, and it isn't coming out of central funds. So that is one of our biggest problems. We channel the money, I think, in the wrong directions.
Well, there is talk of Marwan going to Newcastle, isn't there? Maybe that's the answer.
Is that Newcastle Knights or Newcastle
Thunder?
Yeah.
That's alleged.
Well,
alleged. It's been denied in some
Well,
quarters.
I mean, if Dr. Kukash bought every club he'd been linked with, he'd own virtually the whole of the Super League, if not the Premier League and the NRL.
But also as well, he's made a complete mess at Salford.
Well, I think that's a bit unfair, Gary,
no, it's not. He's made a complete mess.
He's put a lot of money
He's made
in
a complete mess. Well, I'll tell you what then. I'll tell you what. Well, nobody's denying that.
He's done a lot.
He's made a complete mess. And all right then. If Tim Sheens reckoned he were doing a good job, do you think he'd be going to Ilkeston Rovers? No, he wouldn't. So
I don't know what the arrangements are.
Why does he think then getting involved in another club, certainly Newcastle Thunder, how we can make it work?
Well, I don't know what more that Dr. Kukash could do. He's put a lot of money.
Stop interfering. That's the first thing you can do.
He put a lot of money.
Stop interfering and leave it to people who know what they're doing.
Hang on, you had Ken Davey picking Huddersfield, say a short while ago.
No, I didn't say picking the side. I said he would have had an influence.
He's not the only owner.
Ryan Braley is playing this week.
He's not the only owner of professional sport who has to say. I mean, Mr. Abramovich has a few things to say at Chelsea, and no one says that he's out of order when he puts the money in.
Well, they're winning Premier League titles, aren't they?
So
a bit of a difference.
Well, they're doing quite well.
I think that's a bit unfair on the day.
Okay, but I mean, why has it never worked? Why has it never worked? We had Gateshead, which you felt was just on the cusp of doing well, and the plug was pulled. We've had North Wales, the Wrexham thing, that looked as though it was quite interesting.
The bottom line on it is, I mean, if you go to the NRL, it's taken Melbourne a really long time to become established in Aussie rules territory, Dave. We can evangelise, we can take the spot. You'll find no more passionate a crowd than the North Wales boys, and they love it down in South Wales. And all of these clubs are really strong within their communities. But no, they're not going to be a Liverpool, Man United. They're not going to be a Wigan or a Hull or a St Helens. I think we just have to be realistic about our expectations of what this growth can deliver, and we're not being.
And we got Lionel Hurst, by the way, who's from the Gloucestershire All Golds, on our next programme of Back Chat in a couple of weeks' time. So that'll be interesting to hear what they're doing in terms of trying to spread the word nationally. Right, let's get on to the NRL. We've had fantastic series over there already. We've got two games coming up, the Sharks against the Cowboys and the Storm against the Raiders. It is unpickable at the moment, isn't it? I mean, we talk about our top four, anyone from four, that is absolutely the case.
Well, they just keep ramping it up to a new level, don't they? And the game between the Cowboys and Broncos was just on another planet.
Which one? Anyone of the last four?
Anyway, well, all four of them have gone to overtime. I was really pleased that in this playoff series they have 5 minutes each way overtime, as opposed to just a drop goal-a-thon, which turns into a mess. And it delivered in spades.
What a great
Thurston
great. Thurston's marvellous, isn't it? I mean, you know, I was talking about, you know, Wigan getting us on the edge of the seats, but every time you watch Thurston, I mean, I went, like a lot of people, to Leeds v North Queensland Cowboys, specifically just to say I watched Jonathan Thurston play, you know. Yeah. And every match he plays, it's a joy, isn't it? I mean, the talent of the man.
Well, I'll tell you what, because I was watching the game, I was watching with my son Jonathan, who's an halfback, and I think I know a little bit about playing halfback, to be honest with you. And I just said to him, watch him for the next 10 or 15 minutes, because all he was doing was plotting. Yeah. He was just plotting and just organising there, working out their defences. And when you saw that last try there, when you saw the build up to it, he was just organising everything. And this is what I'm saying about halfbacks being smart. You don't have to be involved in every set of six they play. All he was doing was just plotting. And then he picked out Friday there to get on the outside of him there, nice little hand up, but then just the vision what he had, cool, calm and collected, nice little reverse pass there from there. Yeah. But all Thurston does, he plots what the opposition are, get him the right field position, sheer quality.
The whole game though was a joy to behold.
Yeah,
a joy to behold. You would spend money on watching that every week.
Yeah, I saw a headline on Twitter, one of these Rugby League feeds, it said headline was Jonathan Thurston not coming to Super League. And he went, really?
Does he really need
to? Let me see. I mean, how much of the... Yeah, I know they got the marquee player and etc. But I mean, can you imagine trying to get a couple of NRL players of Thurston's quality? I mean, what would he command? $1 million a year?
Well, 5 years. In 5 years, he might be heading
those were the days when we could, but we just can't. Because I don't think that the game over here is attractive enough to them, no matter what money comes with it.
And Cronulla, you know, they've looked good for most of the season, haven't they? A little bit of a dip.
I mean, you're saying you can't pick it. Melbourne Storm are the overwhelming, but the very strong favourites with the bookmakers. To win. They've got ground advantage, haven't they? Yeah. Against Canberra. That's right, isn't it?
Canberra.
Yeah.
I tell you what, that's going to be a fascinating battle from our point of view. The two dummy halves. Well, Smith and Hodgson. I mean, Hodgson is getting massive raps.
Well, hasn't he made the NRL Team of the Year?
I think he did it on the bench, didn't he?
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, he was on the bench.
Because Smith has had.
Well, I mean, he's pretty close to winning the Dally M, isn't he? Yeah. I mean, he's right up there with the best players in that competition, in the top handful of players, isn't he?
He has been an absolute revelation, and the NRL has delivered back to England, along with Elliot Whitehead, an absolutely top quality international player, and I can't wait to see him in an England shirt.
Well, also as well, and it's great to see it with the English guys playing out there, but when the Aussies are saying this is how good this kid is, and certainly, Ricky Stewart, he was a quality player himself, but also when all the other players are saying how good Hodgson is, and Elliot White has been a good player as well, he's been very, very consistent. That's a mark of the respect, what they've got from the Aussies. But I read Josh Hodgson this week, and he was saying, well, I want to be the best, and I've learned from the best, the players we've been, but also too, he's watched, Cameron Smith, what he does, Cameron Smith, but apart from Benny Elias, from my day and whatever, I reckon he's the best that's ever been, Cameron Smith, to be honest with you, as a number 9. But Hodgson, he won't be intimidated with a challenge against Cameron Smith at the weekend.
Yeah, you clearly didn't see much of Nicky Kiss back in his glory days.
What about Phil McKenzie?
Move on.
So that game, Melbourne Storm against the Canberra Raiders. I mean, that's mouth-watering. Well, they're both.
The favourites have got to be Melbourne because they've been the dominant team throughout the season.
And they've got that spine as well.
And they are in form at the moment. They lost Billy Slater, they found Cameron Munster. It'd be difficult to back against them, but Canberra have got big games.
I saw a game when Melbourne played Brisbane, and Melbourne with a very want to play within the structure, and if you try and match that, you're going to get beat. Well, Brisbane went to Melbourne. And the start of the game, they were throwing it everywhere, and Melbourne didn't know what the heck was going on. Yeah. So I think that Canberra's
are they the Wigan of the NRL?
The NRL. I think Canberra's best chance is to do what they've done all season. If you score 20, we'll score 24. So if you score 40, we'll score 42.
That's a great philosophy. Don't worry about that. And I tell you what, and I say when I saw the Canberra game again, how good is he? He's been Solihull as well. It said Tellens at times, you weren't that impressive, but for Canberra, absolutely sensational.
The other eye catcher this week, it was the Queensland player, the Cowboys player, Ponga, the young kid, 18. I think he's only the 6th debutant in the finals. And we didn't see a lot of him, but what we saw of him, you thought, well, there's nothing to worry about there from English Rugby League's point of view for the next generation.
Well, the only good thing is that at least he won't be playing for about another 4 years for the Kangaroos.
He probably can't tackle. He's good with the ball in his hands.
Hey Dave, you don't have to tackle to be a good player. I can vouch for that. I can vouch for that. Tackling, no thank you.
Yeah, right, good.
That's leadership. You were a delegator, Garry.
Yeah, he
I
was
was a
plotting.
plotter.
He was plotting. Where are we going for a drink after the match, fellas? That's what he was plotting. Right, we're coming towards the end of the programme, so let's just remind ourselves of those games and when and where you can catch them this weekend, right here on Premier Sports. It all starts on Friday morning, of course. The Sharks against the Cowboys at the Allianz Arena, the Allianz Stadium, I should say. 10:55 in the morning, Friday the 23rd of September. And then 24 hours later, the Storm against the Raiders at Amy Park, Saturday morning. That is 10:40 live. And given the quality and the drama that we've seen so far, you ain't going to want to miss those. You really ain't going to want to miss those. They're going to be splendid. Check all those details and more at www.premiersports.tv. That's the place to go. And that's as far as we go for this week's programme. Thank you, as ever, to our guest panel today, Danny Lockwood from League Weekly, Rod Studd, TV broadcaster, Rugby League broadcaster, and Garry Schofield, legend. Until we see you again in 2 weeks' time, goodbye.